With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories: Leroy Boone sentenced to 4 years for indecent assault. Autopsy reveals 2 cruise passengers drown on St. Kitts Nevis beaches. Justice Patrick Thompson Jr. sentences manslaughter defendants for egregious murders in McKnight. Inter-American Corporation on Agriculture, ICA, supports poultry farmers in Grenada. Chaotic start to cash grant distribution in Guyana's Region 4 teachers. Internationally, Christmas in Lebanon. Displaced Christians long for celebrations at home. Now, the details. In a sexual assault case, Leroy Boone was convicted in November 2024 for indecently assaulting the 15-year-old daughter of a friend. His offenses included forcibly kissing the young girl on the mouth, as well as other places about her body, over her clothing. The assault occurred in November 2023. His Lordship Justice Patrick Thompson Jr. announced the sentences in the following case on December 19, 2024.
Mr. Boone's victim was several weeks shy of her 16th birthday when this indecent assault occurred. There was some argument by Mr. Boone's counsel that his client's offending did not fall into Level A, the most serious level on the guideline, as the assault did not involve direct contact with the victim's genitalia. His lawyer accepted that the age disparity, Mr. Boone was age 52 at the time, and the abuse of the trust reposed in him as family friend and coach of the victim would automatically qualify this matter for Level A seriousness. Even making allowances for the fact that this offense did not involve direct contact with the victim's genitalia, this offense was a serious violation of the victim's bodily integrity. This court accepts that this offense, though serious, is not the most serious form of indecent assault. This court is all the same required to fashion a starting point of 40% of the maximum penalty of 10 years imprisonment, with a range of 35% to 50% of the maximum penalty.
The maximum penalty is 10 years imprisonment, but Justice Thompson Jr. ruled that given the seriousness of the crime, a range of 3.5 to 5 years imprisonment is consistent with the guidelines. The victim had an SBA or school-based assessment and could not complete it on her own device. Her father advised her to complete it at Boone's residence, a trusted friend.
The victim told her father she did not want to go to Mr. Boone's house. And Mr. Boone, in the presence of her father, said, "What? Are you afraid that I'm going to hold you up and kiss you up?" This is exactly what happened. He held her and he kissed her up. It is noteworthy that instead of querying Mr. Boone's veiled threat to assault his daughter, the victim's father ordered her to go down to Boone's house to get her work done.
The judge, in his ruling, addressed what many sexual assault victims go through after such an incident.
The victim impact statement confirms that the victim now resents physical touch, whether from males or females, and has isolated herself from her friends and from going to school. She has developed anger problems and developed a dislike for her father, who failed to protect her. The impact of Mr. Boone's offending is likely to be felt for years to come, and the Social Development Department is ordered to provide the victim with such counseling and/or psychological support as she needs.
Boone has been remanded for 3 months and 11 days and was sentenced to serve a term of 4 years imprisonment, less the 3 months and 11 days spent on remand. Additionally, because the victim impact statement demonstrates the psychological injury that the victim has suffered and is likely to continue to suffer, Boone is ordered to pay a sum of $1,750 to the court no later than April 30th, 2025, for payment to the victim for the costs of any therapeutic intervention she may require. He will be brought back to court if Boone fails to pay. Authorities have confirmed the tragic drowning incidents of 2 tourists who recently visited the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Autopsy reports reveal that both victims succumbed to drowning after engaging in swimming activities at local beaches. Gemma Mangible, a Canadian national, arrived in St. Kitts on December 17, 2024, aboard the cruise ship Oasis of the Seas. Tragically, she was pronounced dead on the same day after swimming at South Friars Beach, located on the southeast peninsula. According to the autopsy conducted on December 20th, 2024, her death resulted from drowning due to submersion in seawater. Similarly, Vivian Ann Hammond of Shepperton, United Kingdom, arrived in St. Kitts on December 19th, 2024, via the cruise ship Spirit of the Adventure Saga. She also experienced a fatal incident during a swimming activity, this time at Cockleshell Beach on the southeast peninsula. An autopsy conducted on December 20th confirmed that Hammond's cause of death was drowning due to submersion in seawater echoing the circumstances surrounding Miss Mangible's demise. Local officials urge tourists to exercise caution when swimming in unfamiliar waters and to remain attentive to beach safety guidelines. On December 19, 2024, His Lordship Justice Patrick Thompson Jr. delivered the final verdicts in the high-profile case involving Tabari Roberts and Jelani Duncan. Both defendants pled guilty to manslaughter in the tragic deaths of Jaquan Merritt and Lamonte Heiliger, who were fatally shot on January 11, 2021 in the McKnight community. Duncan acknowledged his responsibility through a plea of unlawful act manslaughter, admitting he provided his service weapon issued to him as a member of the defense force to Roberts. Meanwhile, Roberts pled guilty to manslaughter because of provocation, claiming he acted in self-defense after Merritt allegedly brandished a fake firearm during a dispute over a $100 debt. Justice Thompson characterized the crime as egregious, recounting the violent encounter at Roberts' home where Merritt confronted Roberts about a loan of $300 that had not been fully repaid.
The killing of Heiliger is particularly egregious since he posed no threat to either man. Heiliger was unarmed and was shot in the back several times. Roberts killed both Merritt and Heiliger, and Duncan, in handing over his firearm as opposed to using his firearm to defuse the argument, must have recognized that one or both of Heiliger and Merritt may die. Duncan's actions in handing over the firearm calls into question the means by which persons become members of this country's defense force. This court is not aware of the enlistment or recruitment process, but Duncan's actions demonstrate serious deficits in Duncan's decision-making and in those who invested him with that tremendous responsibility of carrying a firearm. Duncan's decision to deliberately part with his firearm was not a simple error of judgment. Duncan deliberately repudiated the oath that he had taken with deadly consequences.
Tensions escalated during the argument, which involved questioning whether Merritt and Heiliger intended to rob or shoot Roberts. It was during this confrontation that Merritt was struck by a gunshot to the head, delivered by Roberts using Duncan's service pistol. Heiliger, standing behind Merritt, was chased and shot multiple times in the back as he attempted to escape. After the shooting, both defendants engaged in actions to conceal their crimes, including moving Merritt's body to a vacant lot and collecting spent shell casings. In his remarks, Justice Thompson elaborated on the details leading to their guilty pleas, emphasizing the severity of both men's actions. He pointed out that the use of a firearm contributed significantly to the aggravating factors, which escalated their culpability under the homicide offenses guidelines of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. The judge stated that Duncan's culpability fell into the very high category, as he should have recognized the potential for lethal consequences in handing over his loaded weapon. Conversely, Roberts was deemed to fall into the medium category for his provoking circumstances. Consequently, he set the starting points for sentencing at 24 years for Duncan and 20 years for Roberts. Looking ahead, Justice Thompson articulated that although both men received credit for their guilty pleas, their awareness of their actions warranted heftier sentences. With Roberts being the one who pulled the trigger, he was deemed more culpable, which led to a sentence of 30 years imprisonment, with time already served on remand deducted. Duncan received a sentence of 29 years and 3 months adjusted for remand time. In his closing remarks, Justice Thompson reminded the court that no sentence could adequately address the loss and grief experienced by the victims' families. The case, notorious for its violence over a minor sum of money, serves as a grim reminder of the consequences of reckless decisions and the profound impact of gun violence in society. In regional news, Inter-American Corporation on Agriculture, ICA, supports poultry farmers in Grenada. Grenada Broadcasting Network has that story.
The Inter-American Corporation on Agriculture, ICA, has made a contribution of 400 chicks as part of wider efforts to support farmers in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. During the past week, ICA's national specialist, Gregory Del Sol, handed over the chicks and feed to benefiting farmers.
We know in the post-Beryl situation, many of our farmers, crop farmers, fishers, and poultry and livestock farmers were severely affected. So we wanted, in our own small way, to make a contribution to the effort to rebuild and to get our farmers going. This farmer was just explaining to me that he lost his pen, that he's trying to start back. So we are happy that we can play a role in helping him start back and helping other farmers start back their poultry operations. We are trying to assist 14 farmers in Grenada and Carriacou. 6 will be Carriacou farmers and 8 will be on the mainland of Grenada. So we are giving about 1,400 day-old chicks, 700 layers and 700 broilers to those farmers, and a donation of feed for the entire life cycle of the chicks.
This initiative is expected to improve self-sufficiency in Grenada through increased production of poultry and a reduction on the reliance on imports. Permanent Secretary David Hopkin is hopeful that the initiative can empower local farmers with the resources and support necessary to expand their operations and contribute to a robust national food supply.
All part of the bear relief efforts and partnering with Grenada, the Ministry of Agriculture specifically, in this initiative. So on behalf of the government as well as the Ministry of Agriculture, we say thank you for this initiative.
Farmers on the sister island of Carriacou also received their supply of chicks and feed. ICA continues to support member states, which includes Grenada, with knowledge, capacity building and other initiatives. This initiative is expected to complement Component 4 of the World Bank-funded Food Security Enhancement Project, which prioritizes support for the livestock and poultry industries. Ahead of the arrival of the breed stock, the ministry has prioritized the awareness and education of farmers, placing emphasis on brooding and post-hatch management. The training exercise was held to equip farmers with the expertise that will help them to reduce mortality rates by employing proper brooding and post-hatch management techniques. The Food Security Enhancement Project is receiving funding from the World Bank amounting to $27 million.
Chaotic start to cash grant distribution in Guyana's Region 4 teachers. Guyana News Source reports.
Hundreds of teachers in Georgetown received the $100,000 government cash grant, but many of them called for the process to be better organized as it got off to a chaotic start. On Sunday evening, the Minister of Education, in a video message on Facebook, asked teachers in the Georgetown area to uplift their checks this morning from the 21 Brigham office of the Ministry of Education. This morning, when teachers turned up in large numbers at the office, the distribution exercise was started, then halted. The teachers were then told that the distribution exercise would continue at St. Stanislaus College. Hundreds of teachers hurried down to that location, but were met with a locked gate as systems were being put in place for the distribution. The teachers were forced to stand outside the school compound before the distribution eventually got started. Many of the teachers complained that the Ministry of Finance should have sent the payment directly to their bank accounts, the same way their salaries are sent monthly.
Just like how they distribute the children cash grant, I thought that they should have done it that way.
Could have been done different. They could have just sent it to our bank account like they originally said they would. Because when they were doing the registration, they said they were going to send it to our bank account. That's what we were expecting. So now to hear that it took them 21, we were like, all right, good. It's going to be a decent procedure. Not knowing that we still had to leave 21 and come over here. Still had to wait in front like a good 4 to 5 minutes, then come inside, find where you were. Then now when you find where you were, you have to look for your name. Sometimes not finding your name, you got to look for a next list. It's a whole different, confusion.
The teachers described the distribution exercise as frustrating, as many of them had to wait more than 2 hours before receiving their checks. Additionally, some teachers who said they had registered during the registration period at their schools said their names could not be found among registered teachers, and several of them were turned away. The cash grant distribution exercise for teachers and other public offices in Region 4 is expected to continue on Tuesday. Meanwhile, residents in a number of other regions continue to seek information about a timeline for a registration process to begin in their communities. President Irfan Ali has admitted that the initiative has been hit with a number of issues, but he's hopeful that by the end of the year, all pensioners and public servants will receive the cash grant.
We now bring you these international reports.
Villagers gather for a recital at a church in Ain El Deleb outside Sidon. The congregation is remembering lost friends after an Israeli airstrike tipped a 6-story building down a hillside, killing at least 70 people in their homes a few months ago. They say the first Christmas since a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah that brought a year of fighting to an end is bittersweet.
We hope
that this bloody war that happened in the south does not happen again, and we hope for the return of all displaced people. It's true, we are celebrating Christmas, but we have heartache.
An estimated 1.2 million people have been displaced by fighting in southern and eastern Lebanon. Arlette Francis won't be decorating a Christmas tree at the house where she's sheltering, far from her home in Alma al-Sha'ab, close to the border with Israel.
I want to decorate my house in Al-Mash'ab with a big tree so we can enjoy Christmas with our family and loved ones. I don't want to decorate anything here. I will leave it as it is, because we are not in the mood for anything.
She and her husband thought the move would be temporary, but months later, they're desperate to go home.
We feel heartache and pain, but one still hopes to go back to their town and their homes to rebuild again.
Israel has threatened displaced Lebanese people not to return to their southern border villages, including Alma al-Sha'ab, so it seems the rebuilding won't start anytime soon. Barbara Angopa, Al Jazeera.
During the Cold War, the nuclear missile silo in southern Ukraine was part of a network that was built to deter anyone from attacking the Soviet Union. Its command post is designed to shield the launch crew from everything but a direct nuclear hit. A long corridor underground leads to a shaft 40 meters deep through a steel door that weighs nearly a ton. This is how you gain access to the command post, passing the cramped living quarters. Viktor Ksentsov is a former commander in the Soviet Union's strategic missile forces, now turned tour guide. He talks us through what would happen in the event of a nuclear war.
Once the battle plan is activated, the codes received unlock the targeting sequence, and the launch order is transferred to the missile silo.
Crew would then launch the missiles using a dual key and button system, simultaneously pressed by 2 people. This is the epicenter, the missile control launch center. Now, this controlled a network of 10 missile silos, each silo containing one missile containing 10 warheads. Now, each warhead had the destructive power about 30 times plus the bomb that exploded and killed everybody in Hiroshima in 1945. So incredible, almost apocalyptic power. When asked whether he had ever considered just how many people would be killed by his actions.
We were strictly under orders. An American once visited who was in charge of a similar silo. He told me that he was also supposed to follow his orders.
The world came close to destruction several times during the Cold War, and now, with the spread of nuclear weapons, the possibility of nuclear conflict is again on the rise. The actual missile silo. Now, when the command orders will be given, 120-ton hatch would spring open and the missile would be launched within seconds. And then within 30 minutes after that, millions of people would be dead on the other side of the planet. Now, this is decommissioned, but there are hundreds of these active missile silos across Russia, across the United States, and increasingly across China. Alex Katopoulos, Al Jazeera, southern Ukraine.
The man accused of killing the US healthcare insurance chief executive, Brian Thompson, has pleaded not guilty to state-level murder and terrorism charges. Luigi Mangione appeared in court in New York to face 11 state criminal counts. He also faces federal stalking and murder charges that could lead to a death penalty sentence. Our North America correspondent Neda Tawfiq has this update.
Luigi Mangione was flanked by police officers as he was brought into the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse. He was in handcuffs and shackles, wearing a burgundy sweatshirt and beige pants. Now, inside the court, he was asked how he pleaded to the 11-count indictment brought by New York State prosecutors, which includes first-degree murder and murder as an act of terrorism for the killing of Brian Thompson, the boss of the American insurance company United Healthcare. The 26-year-old leaned into the microphone and said not guilty. These are charges separate to the federal charges that he was in court for when he first arrived in New York on Thursday. If convicted in the state case, Mangione could face life imprisonment with no parole. In the federal case, he could technically face the death penalty if prosecutors seek it. Now, the lead prosecutor in the state case, Joel Siderman, said in court that he had never seen a case with such a high volume of evidence. Remember, investigators collected fingerprints, images, and other evidence during their 5-day manhunt and say that they recovered in Mangione's possession a ghost gun, a notebook that detailed his plans, and a letter. Now, Mangione's attorney, Karen Friedman Agnafilo, previously said that the simultaneous federal and state cases were highly unusual. She raised concerns that he couldn't receive a fair trial, questioning, for example, why New York's Mayor Eric Adams had been present when Mangione was brought off a police helicopter at the Manhattan helipad last week. She has complained that officials are treating him like he is some sort of political fodder.
I'm right now standing at the entrance of the headquarters of civil defense in the Gaza Strip, where the Israeli drones have targeted a group of civil defense members. 3 civil defense members have been killed and 1 critically injured by this attack. We can see here the blood spilled on the ground. We can see the shrapnels on the wall. The missile that has targeted this place.
We received an emergency stress message calling for help to extinguish a fire that broke out as a result of an Israeli airstrike on a residential building. We rushed to the scene simply to fulfill our mission. On the way, we received a call telling us that the site we were heading to has just been pounded again. We went and found dozens killed, including our fellow civil defense team members, shredded to pieces.
This place was targeted for the 2nd time in a row. With the ongoing Israeli targeting of civil defense crews, the situation is getting much more dire. With more civilians being targeted, they need civil defense services. But now the situation is getting much more dire in the light of attacking and targeting these civil defense crews, the lifesavers who rescue the civilians' lives. Ibrahim Khalili, Al Jazeera, Northern Gaza, Palestine.
A Reuters source says Donald Trump's presidential transition team is preparing for the U.S. to withdraw from the World Health Organization. The source, a health law expert familiar with the discussions, says it could happen as early as the first day of his new term in January. The Financial Times was the first to report the plan. Trump's transition team did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. The move would align with Trump's long-standing criticism of the UN Health Agency. It would also significantly shift U.S. global health policy and isolate Washington from international pandemic efforts. Trump has already signaled a shift towards domestic health priorities. He's nominated WHO skeptics for top public health roles, including vaccine critic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Trump's initial attempt to lead the WHO in 2020 was reversed by President Joe Biden, who rejoined the organization. The president-elect has argued that the agency failed to hold China accountable for the early spread of COVID-19. He's also repeatedly called the WHO a puppet of Beijing and vowed to redirect U.S. contributions to domestic health initiatives.
They're literally a pipe organ for China. That's the way I view it. So we're seeing and we're looking and we're watching.
A WHO spokesperson declined to comment directly, but referred Reuters to comments by Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus at a December 10th press briefing. He responded to questions about a U.S. withdrawal under the upcoming Trump White House.
We're ready to work together. And I believe, the U.S. leaders understand that, the U.S. cannot be safe unless the rest of the world is safe.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: Leroy Boone sentenced to 4 years for indecent assault. Autopsy reveals 2 cruise passengers drowned on St. Kitts Nevis beaches. Justice Patrick Thompson Jr. sentences manslaughter defendants for egregious murders in McKnight. Inter-American Corporation on Agriculture, ICA, supports poultry farmers in Grenada. Chaotic start to cash grant distribution in Guyana's Region 4 teachers. Internationally, Christmas in Lebanon. Displaced Christians long for celebrations at home. Thank you for listening.